Hey everybody, today is Monday, October 7th, 2024. This is your tropical update for currently Category 5, Hurricane Milton. Right now, near the Yucatan, expected to make its way towards Florida in the next few days. Now, currently this is our storm. You see, taking the zoom in view to the storm, you see we now have a nice eye in the center. We have currently still convection forming around the center of the storm. Looking at our IR satellite, we can see we have brand new cold, very cold temperatures. Meaning that we have brand new storms, new thunderstorms forming around the center, meaning that this storm, even though it's been Category 5 for a few hours now, it is still intensifying. Now, this is old news, but this is from the recon mission that we had earlier this morning at around 8 in the morning, showing that a drop sound of 941 millibars surface pressure is around 7:50 a.m. Central Standard Time. Now, no less than 80 minutes later, another drop sound saw the surface pressure drop down to 935, meaning at that time Milton was intensifying. At that time around 8 in the morning, we had Category 4 forest winds, a high-end Category 4 detected by the airplane mission at that time. But then later, at 10:40 in the morning, we had our Category 5 winds detected, which upgraded the system from Category 5. Now, last night when I made the video, this was about, let's say about 15-ish hours when I made the video yesterday. It was at Category 1. It was a high-end Category 1. And those 12 hours overnight, it went from Category 1 to Category 4 to 5, which is one of the fastest Atlantic intensification processes ever seen in the Atlantic and in hurricane history. You can see every few hours, I think it was every hour, starting in the early morning, the pressure every hour kept dropping very quickly from 935 all the way to 921. And by the end of the mission, it dropped down to a 912. Now, these are last night's models. Let's say that these are last night's models are around 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you say that somewhere around here was this morning, no models had it at Category 4 or 5. Most had it that, maybe we could have a Category 4 storm at some point tonight, Monday night, but nobody had a Category 5 or 4 storm Monday morning. This is a very rapid storm intensification that's probably in Atlantic hurricane history. Now, this major intensification was from some of the reasons that I explained last night, where we have a small system of very tight hurricane force winds. This is the HAVS B model from this morning, showing a Category 4 storm early this morning, and that's basically what verified this morning. So the HAVS B from this morning's run, not last night's, because last night's HAVS B model had it maybe a Category 4 tonight, but this morning's run had it at a Category 4 this morning. So the HAVS B is so far one of the better ones that's depicting how intense this storm was going to get. Now, like I said, one of the reasons is we have a small storm, so all these winds are compact near the center. We have high sea surface temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico. We have these westerlies above the storm, producing outflow, which is basically giving the storm more time to breathe, making it more intense. Now, as for tracking the storm's future, it's basically the same thing as last night. We have a high pressure system here in the Caribbean. We have these westerlies winds, and as the storm gets closer to the Florida Peninsula, we have a low pressure system here in the Gulf, taking this a little bit more up, somewhere around Tampa Bay. So we see most models had it here at 7 in the morning, and then most models take it to impact somewhere in Tampa Bay or somewhere in the west coast of Florida in the next 72 hours. So somewhere around Wednesday evening all the way up to Thursday morning. And we see this morning's, if we take a closer look and we see this morning's runs, we can see most of them are in between Tampa, or in between the Tampa area, basically, Some may have it down here at Fort Myers and Naples. Some had it up last night's had it some over here, but now most are just now. The closer we get to landfall, the more we have our better idea where it's going to land, and this morning's runs have it somewhere near Tampa. Now, this low pressure system that I mentioned earlier in the Gulf Coast, once Milton starts interacting with this, it's going to be affecting Milton in a number of different ways. Checking in the high resolution HAB speed model that I said earlier, which is modeling Milton pretty well as a 918 at 11 a.m., which is basically, if I check, what is headed at a 912. So, it's not perfect, but it is one of the better models that it's depicting. So we have a 918 Milton. Basically, it stays as a Category 5 storm for the next 50 hours, the next 48 hours, until Wednesday at the midday hours. And then at this point, we're 12 hours before landfall. You see, here we have the Florida coast. We're 12 hours before the landfall. Milton is still a Category 5 in this model. But once that low pressure system in the Gulf Coast starts interacting with it, the compactness of this storm is going to start disrupting it from the high winds. So then we're going to start getting a larger wind field of category of hurricane force winds and bigger tropical storm force winds all around it. Now in this model, as you can see, that shear starts disrupting Milton's structure and basically taking away a lot of its hurricane force winds. It still has hurricane force winds in the north side. If the shear is coming from the south side, it takes away the south side, leaving hurricane force winds in the north side of the storm. And if it enters south of Tampa, because the strongest part of the storm is going to be the north of it, then it's going to give a direct impact to the strongest winds at least, to Tampa. And basically, that low pressure system here in the Gulf Coast is going to determine how quickly it's going to reach Tampa Bay, which we can see here in these models. The most recent models, we have it somewhere underneath 72 hours. And if that happens, if we check the intensification guidance, which we have it, you can see here we have Milton staying for the next 48 hours. It's a Category 5 storm. But if it reaches Tampa Bay below the 72, then it could be somewhere anywhere between a Category 2 to 3. But some models still have it as a Category 5 or 4 as it makes landfall in Tampa Bay. The National Hurricane Center itself is predicting Milton to make landfall as a Category 3 plus at some point early morning Thursday, around 1 a.m. Thursday. Earlier this morning, I think it had it at 7 p.m. Wednesday. So you can see there's still some difference between either it gets there quicker or it gets there slower. We're still not sure. It's all gonna depend on when it gets picked up by that low pressure system in the Gulf Coast. According to the National Hurricane Center, we see the earliest possible arrival time of tropical storm force winds is around Wednesday morning. Here we see across the west coast of Florida, we see storm surge warnings issued as the National Hurricane Center is expecting catastrophic storm surges in Tampa Bay and other significant storm surges across the entire west coast. We still have that moderate risk from last night of flash flooding. And here's just a quick showing map that a lot of evacuations are taking place, especially in where it's expected to impact in the Tampa Bay area. And like I said yesterday, just like with any tropical storm, the Storms Prediction Center has outlined a slight risk of severe storms for the chance of tornadoes as Milton, before and after and during Milton makes impact. To go into this a little bit further, here we have the NAM3 model showing Milton off the coast of Florida Wednesday afternoon and evening. But we see the rain bands well ahead of it. Here's the strongest winds offshore. But here we have the rain bands already making impact on the Florida west coast. And we take a sounding near these. We see we have a very unstable and sheared environment, very conducive for tropical tornadoes. To recap, Hurricane Hilton expected to remain a Category 5 storm just 12 hours before landfall until that low pressure system in the Gulf starts interacting with it, disrupting the system, making it somewhat weaker. Well, we still don't know how weak exactly. Category 3, Category 4, Category 3 at least is what the National Hurricane Center is expecting. We have the rains and the tornadic rain bands in front of it before it makes landfall, approximately Thursday morning. And one final thing, the National Hurricane Center right now is estimating that the minimal central pressure is at 905, and it has a max sustained winds of 155 knots, making this Hurricane Milton one of the strongest hurricanes ever recorded in the Atlantic. And that's it for your tropical update on currently Category 5 Milton.